Lord of Kinall Owen and the northern half of Ireland. Remember now, Kinall Owen, that goes back to, have I got bugs? Kinall Owen was the half, Kinall Owen was the son, one of the three sons of Niall of the Nine Hostages. See how conscious these were in just ordinary writing. They saw these. They're fairly. This guy must have been the bard. So to answer your question, because he seems to have done the writing and documented it and so on, so he would have been their bard and their scribe, which is what you asked earlier. Because it'd be very unlikely, wouldn't it, that they would have gone without him?
So I would have thought.
Yeah.
Usually, just like the clearances in Scotland, they took all their bards.
They did. It was part of their
genealogy.
and probably a harpist too.
Is there one part of Northern Ireland that, say Tyrone, or is it just all Northern Ireland, or what area were most of these?
Well, it would have been all of the province of Ulster. Ulster, yeah. Northern Ireland is a modern expression, right. Ulster. But Kinall Owen, which was Tyrone, and which was the O'Neill. 11 months later, King Philip himself wrote from his palace in Aranda de Duero to his ambassador in Rome, the Conde de Castro, asking him to tell the Earl of Tyrone of another untimely family death. Don Enrico O'Neill, eldest son of the Earl of Tyrone, died of illness here 3 days ago, in Spain now. He had come from Flanders, where he served me with an infantry regiment of his nation. So you see the Irish Brigade. His death has grieved me, because he had great qualities and served me well, for which I was well pleased with him. I have ordered that he be buried in a manner suited to his rank, in a much honoured chapel of the monastery of St. Francis. Now that's from the actual hands of the King of Spain himself, writing to his ambassador in Rome to convey that message, that information to O'Neill. So you see the...
money when they were alive.
Pardon?
We wouldn't give any money when they were alive, but I think it makes sense now. We forgive our politicians when they say we can.
Politicians are very tight with money. Meanwhile, Hugh O'Neill, the Earl of Tyrone in Rome, continued to fire off letter after letter to King Philip and his advisors, never giving up hope that he could lead a Spanish expeditionary force to Ireland, and at the same time making fitful attempts to persuade King James to agree to a reconciliation. At the beginning of 1616, now aged 65, Tyrone appeared to be in robust health. Then, in July of that year, the new Spanish ambassador to Rome, Cardinal Gaspar de Barojo de Velasque, in one of his first letters sent this report to the king. The Earl of Tyrone died on the 20th of this month, in the same Christian and exemplary manner in which he lived, leaving the Countess and those of his nation in great affliction and without the protection he afforded them. The English ambassador in Brussels, Sir William Trumbull, wrote that Tyrone had died of a fever in Rome, and was there buried with great pomp and solemnity. His body was laid beside those of his son Hugh, and Earl of Tyrone, at San Pietro in Montorio. I mean, it's just awful, isn't it? That they were exiled. They were like, they had no, as you said, they had no immunity. They just died. It's just very sad. Back in Ireland, even those Gealic lords who had tried to keep on the right side of the crown were paying the price of the flight. Donald O'Cahan, he had served his purpose now. Now this is important, was cast into the Tower of London, along with his son and Neil Gorv O'Donnell, who had fought so well for Dacre in the past, never to be released, Dacre being the English general. So they had served the English. Tyrone's son Con, who could not be found prior to the flight, that was the kid that they were looking for desperately, was sent to Eton, only to join his compatriots in the Tower soon after, for fear he could become a new rebel leader. None of these guys ever came out of the Tower. The Countess of Tyrconnell was more fortunate. She was brought to England and given a decent pension. Now she was the daughter of the Earl of Fitzgerald, the Earl of Kildare. The intensely class-conscious, okay.
They should have just stayed in Ireland.
They would have died anyway.
Did you see when they had the first woman.
Might as well.
But you're right. They would have. You're right. They would have been buried in Ireland. Yeah, it would have been much better. And you know, that's one of the questions that still remains in my mind. You know,
They would have died swinging.
well, they would have, and it would be a heck of a lot better for Ireland if they were died and buried. Well, yes, but at least you would not have given up your lands.
Yeah.
You know, you wouldn't have been attainted. It was a very bad move on the part of Hugh O'Neill. It was a very bad move. This fellow wrote something interesting here. The intensely class-conscious Gaelic lords rarely showed any concern for the fate of the lower orders. Certainly the correspondence of the Earls shows almost no interest in what would happen to the ordinary people in Ulster they had left behind forever in September 1607. Now these people faced an influx of colonists, speaking an alien tongue, professing a religion they regarded as heretical, abiding by laws unfamiliar to them, intent on dispossessing them, or at least allowing them, in defiance of the plantation terms, to stay on with uncertain tenures as low-paid herdsmen. In time, the newly arrived colonists were to find that, far from the natives being all wiped out by war and famine, the Irish everywhere outnumbered them. On lonely settlements, the baying of the wolf at the moon must have sent a chill down the spine of many a colonist who had never heard the sound before. The fear of the wood kern lurking in the thickets was better founded. The greatest threat, however, was the smouldering resentment of the insecure native Irish who worked and farmed with the settlers. For the present, however, King James immersed himself energetically in the greatest project of his reign. He and his courtiers showered prospective colonists with enticing advertising copy. Thomas Blennerhassett, subsequently a victim of the 1641 massacre, arriving from Norfolk during the summer of 1610 to take possession of his grant in Fermanagh, wrote a pamphlet before the end of the year, exhorting his fellow Englishmen to join him. Blennerhassett, his family, ended up down in Tralee as major landowners, and it was they who built, not the replica, but the original ship, the
I have it on my t-shirt at home.
the replica that's
Yeah, the Johnny something.
the that is actually going to anchor on the 14th.
Yeah, I was on it.
You were on the ship, were you? Well, they're going to anchor it off of Rathmullen because it's probably the only tall ship they have on there.
Johnson.
The Jenny Johnson, correct. But I just find it ironic.
She went from to Canada. She took lumber back from Canada, and then people wanted to go, so they made money.
Right.
Its claim to fame was it had a doctor on board and money down.
Well, anyway, it was the Blennerhassett family who built. But it's just ironic. This was the ad that he ran in the in Norfolk newspaper to get people to come and work his land. Fair England, the flourishing sister, brave Hibernia, commendeth unto thy due consideration her youngest daughter, depopulated Ulster. Despoiled, she presents herself in a ragged, sad, sabled robe. Ragged, there remaineth nothing but ruins and desolation, with a very little show of any humanity. Of herself she aboundeth with many the best blessings of God. Fair England, she hath more people than she can well sustain. Goodly Ulster, for want of people unmanured. Her pleasant fields and rich grounds, they remain, if not desolate, worse. So, you know, when you were granted land, you had to bring people over. You came be like a little colonist in your own right. So, I don't know how much time we have and how much you want to. 10 more minutes. Okay, then I'll go back. I'd skip the actual the plantation because, of course, that is the natural outfall of it. I've also kind of skipped over Ciara O'Doherty's revolt. Although Ciara O'Doherty was a very interesting guy, I'll I'll talk a wee bit about him. In April 1608, the revolt of Sir Doherty, the undutiful departure of the Earls of Tyrone, Tyrconnell and Maguire, offers good occasion for a plantation. An Irish Crown official observed to Lord Salisbury. Chichester quickly grasped the opportunity presented, though he knew of no plan to seize or poison O'Neill, and thought it were strange that he should quit an earldom and so large and beneficial a territory for smoke and castles in the air. The Lord Deputy wrote to James I just after the flight. If His Majesty will, during their absence, assume the countries into his possession, divide the lands amongst the inhabitants, and will bestow the rest upon servitors and men of worth here, and withal bring in colonies and civil people of English and Scotland,